I will talk about how Django CMS uses Django, and especially about the good, the bad, and the ugly part of Django CMS and Django, how it interacts between them. Hello, I'm Iacopo, and I keep spamming people around Europe about Django CMS. I'll spam you about the CMS too, so bear with me. I am founder and CTO of Nephila. I'm one of the core developer of Django CMS and author of Django CMS installers and other applications in the Django ecosystem. So, Django CMS is quite known, but I'll give you a brief explanation of what it is. I like to say that Django CMS is a good Django citizen. It's really a Django application. Contrary to other CMSs, it doesn't hijack your entire project. So it's just sit there and do its work on unstructured content, which is the job of a CMS. But it also plays nicely with other Django applications. So it integrates with them, it provides features to other applications, and in a sense, the best way to use it is to glue all the applications thanks to the CMS. So a bit of background about Django CMS, which was started in 2008 by Divio, and thanks to a guy called Daniele, which is around here. So he can tell you about the origin of Django CMS. It's derived, loosely based, so to speak, on Django CMS pages, CMS for Django that existed at the time and still exists. And surprisingly enough, it's still possible to port content from Django CMS pages to Django CMS. And I've done it for the PyCon Italia website 2 years ago, and I know it's still used in the EuroPython website in 2015. So it's doable. It's not enjoyable, but it's doable. And in the 7 years of its life, we had 8 feature releases from 2.0, because we started from CMS pages that was at 1 point whatever at the time, so we started from 2. And now, anytime now, is going to be released 3.2. And one of the good things of Django and Django CMS is that they are very easily upgradable. We just released a project which consists in upgrade from Django 1.1 and Django CMS 2.1 to Django 1.8 and Django CMS 3.2. It takes some work, but it's really doable and not that painful. So even if you have old Django projects, you can really upgrade them to latest versions. So let's see some concepts. How many of you use Django CMS? So okay, so quite a few, but probably a recap of the main concepts are useful for everybody. The main object of a CMS is a page, obviously. And in Django CMS is the base object you work on. And it's used to store tree hierarchy information. A website has a hierarchy of pages, and these are stored in the page model. And the other important attribute is the Django template, because Django CMS uses standard Django templates for rendering and for whatever, and that the template used to render the page is attached to the page. Django CMS is multilingual by nature, and so all the language-dependent data are offloaded, are stored in the title model. So all the titles, slugs, metadata, etc., are stored in a title, and also the publishing state is stored on a title, because you may want to publish the English page and not the French one, and whatever. Then the content, which is obviously the most important part of a CMS, are structured in placeholders, which are containers for plugins, which are the actual content. The nice thing about the placeholder is that they are defined in the template, and we'll see later how it works. And then you have the plugin, which are the content, and not in the sense of just text content or image or whatever, but there are code you can use, so a plugin can just pick the latest 5 posts in a blog application and render in a CMS page. And the plugin concept is split into the plugin class and the plugin model. And we'll see that each one has a distinct character, and I'll spend quite a few words on these two classes. And then, as I said before, Django CMS can integrate other Django applications, and Haphook is the way it does. And it's just a wrapper and allows to integrate the applications in the CMS tree. So let's see some numbers. Currently, Django CMS is roughly 40,000 lines of code. Over 3,000 are made of admin code. 2,500 are model code, and then template tag, and surprisingly, only 100 lines of code are view code, because actually Django CMS uses one view for everything, public view. And we have a few thousand lines of code of tests. So as you can see from these brief numbers, Django CMS uses a lot of the Django features. And let's see some of them. So the template tags, I won't go much into details, but are very important for Django CMS, as most of the way you interact with it are based are initiated by the template tags. So the front-end editor, the plugin rendering, the placeholder discovery, etc., are all based on template tags, initiated by template tags. And these are two examples. So when you define, as I told before, you define the placeholders by working on a template. And you do this by using this template tag, placeholder, where you assign a label to it. And when the template is interpreted by the Django engine, it calls this scan placeholder function that recursively calls itself and explore all nodes of the Django template language. And whenever it finds a placeholder node, it creates the placeholder. And otherwise, it just iterates and looks for the other nodes. At the moment, there is no plan to support other template engine. I don't know Jinja enough to tell how hard it would be to replicate this code in Jinja or in other applications, in other template engines. But it's doable, but it's an effort. The other interesting thing that Django CMS does is this innocuous template tag here, CMS_toolbar, which you must include on top of your template, of the body of your template, which does this interesting thing. It basically renders the whole template inside this template tag. This is done only on the editing phase, so this is not code that will run when the normal user will visit your website. But it's used to, because the toolbar needs to create itself. Toolbar is the front-end editor, and populate itself with all the items that belongs to the toolbar. Then render all the content, and then do other things after the template has been rendered. So Django CMS does some weird things on this thing. If you want, we can go more in detail later during the questions. But now I want to go into the three main topics, and so let's see who the good, the bad, and the ugly guys was. So the good, it's the admin. I love the admin, and I really second all in his good words about the admin. He has his quirks, but it works very good. And Django CMS agrees with, with my position, as 1/4 of code is admin related. And this is the front-end editor of Django CMS, and it's all admin code. This is an admin, the change form of the page in Django CMS. And the good thing is that the front-end editor of Django CMS is entirely front-end based. I mean, the code is all front-end, so you can use the front-end editor in your applications without changing your admin. You have a few mixin, you have to import, you have to extend if you want to do things that Django CMS does, like placeholders, etc. But you can just wrap your own application in a front end without effort. And then, as I told before, there are plugins, in this case the plugin class, which are one of the main topics of this talk. And plugin class are basically model admin. And that renders this change form. This is the only view that actually the plugin use. And most of the things you know about the model admin are still valid on the plugin class. So you can customize heavily the plugin, the functionality and how the plugin renders. So the plugin class are basically a model admin with a public view. Because whenever you want to store this information on the plugin, then somehow you have to render it. And so let's see a very brief way, the life cycle of a plugin, from its how it's created, how it's edited, and how it's rendered. The life of a plugin starts in this method, placeholder admin add plugin, which is a view on this model admin. And it starts very simply by instantiating the plugin with a few parameters, like language, plugin type, etc., and then saving it. And this is all done, this is called via Ajax, so it's not something you will see. You don't see a night view for the plugin. And right after that, the change view, the normal change view is called here. This edit plugin is also a method on placeholder admin, and here does some initialization and cleanup, but the core is here, so you just call the change view, and so you see the user will see this form, fill in all the data, and then it's saved and the response is returned. And so the plugin is created. And then the user hit the page, and this plugin is rendered. Now, this is just a simplified edition of the whole calls that all functions involved in render the plugin. We can go into details if you are interested. And I failed to produce a nice sequence diagram as Jacob, but hopefully you will bear with me. So the rendering of a plugin starts here when we define in the same placeholder template tags that we encountered before. And this placeholder is responsible for retrieve the list of plugins, and as you can see, it's very easy. Just standard ORM code here. Just pick all the plugins in the placeholder list I need. And then there is this function we will talk about later. And we regroup all the plugins and create the plugin tree, because